Have you ever wondered how to paint clear and reflective water, as well as trees and rolling hills within a landscape that conveys depth and distance? Perhaps you're struggling with all of these things in your painting. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to do this, how to paint clear glassy water with reflections in it, and also how to paint trees and hills that look realistic so you can create a painting that has lots of depth and distance within it. Now the scene we're going to paint here is a New Zealand landscape, and New Zealand is full of rolling hills, mountains, lots of streams and rivers, and it's just an amazing place to be a landscape painter. And this particular place I actually painted outdoors on plein air, so I thought it was a really beautiful place and I decided to do a studio painting of it. Now here I'm sketching out the composition using burnt sienna mixed with a little pale drying gel, which is the medium that I'm using. I'm painting it with oils, and the brand of oil paint I'm using is Blue Ridge oils, and if you want to get some, I've put a link in the description box below. Now prior to starting this painting, I did a series of sketches to design the composition. This is really important before you get into your painting, so you're not running into compositional errors when you've started. Now, I began the painting by painting my shadow areas and the darks first of all. Now, since painting this, I painted this quite a while ago, I've actually changed the way I paint my artworks, and I start with the darkest darks first, but when I painted this one, I started with the background shadows. However, I still painted the darks first. Now, as I took the photos that I used for this in the early morning, the sun was just coming through and creating a glow over the background mountains. For the background mountains, I used a mix of ultramarine blue with a little burnt sienna, some titanium white and alizarin crimson, and then I added in a little bit of yellow ochre as well to communicate that light coming through. Now, in order to make those background mountains look like they're in the distance, I've made sure that the value of the colour is not too dark. So we'll find our darkest darks and our lightest lights in the foreground, but as landforms recede, the darks aren't as dark and the lights aren't as light. So as I'm starting to come forward in the painting here, I'm starting to make the shadows darker. Now on the left side of this painting, it looks a little bit lighter because of the light I was using, and it was reflecting off the wet paint, but it is darker than the mountain in the background. Now as I come forward in the painting, those values are getting darker. So we're getting some quite dark shadows, and we're going to find our darkest shadows in the very foreground, and that was in these rocks. So again, I'm using similar colours, just combinations of ultramarine blue, burnt sienna and a little alizarin crimson for the dark shadows in these rocks here. And then at the bank of the river, I've added in a little bit of titanium white to lighten the value. Now there's going to be plenty of room to add lighter value colours later on in the painting and add more detail, but at this stage of the painting I just want to establish a tonal range. By painting my darks first, it makes it way easier to paint the areas in light. So painting the reflective, clear, glassy water, painting the trees and the landforms, it all starts in the blocking in stage and starts by beginning with your dark values and shadows first. So paint the darks first. For the trees here, the tree shadows, I've used a mix of ultramarine blue with a little bit of yellow ochre. So this creates a dark low chroma green, chroma being another word for saturation. So we're going to find our most saturated colours in the foreground as well. A lot of colours drop out as you go into the distance, so we need to desaturate them. Now here I'm just painting in some of the reflections from the shadows of these trees. And this is how we paint the reflective water. It starts in the block-in stage. Now one thing I've noticed about painting water, especially from painting outdoors, is often dark reflections can be a little bit lighter, but then the lights can be a little bit darker. So it's almost like the tonal range is a bit narrower than it would be normally when we're just looking at the landscape. But this all starts in the beginning, in the block-in stage. And the colours that I'm painting in the water are generally the colours that are in the background mountains and the tree shadows. And then a bit later on, when I start painting the grass in the midground and some of the other foliage and vegetation, then I'll be able to incorporate that into the water a bit later on. So you can see already that by painting the darks first, I'm already starting to get a bit of depth into this painting before I've started painting in any kind of details or painting the areas in light. And the next thing to do now is to start painting the areas in light. So this is the fields in the midground, those hills there, and this grass that's in the foreground by the banks of the river. Now I know we've already spent a little bit of time looking at how to start a painting, but this is one of the most important aspects, I reckon, is setting up that whole tonal structure in the painting. So getting our darks in first, that's going to make it easier to create the depth and distance in the painting when we start adding the areas in light. So now that I'm starting to paint the hills and the grass and the vegetation, I can also then start dragging that paint into the reflections of the water, so creating reflective water here. The other thing I'm starting to do is to paint the sunlit areas of the trees and other vegetation in this painting. So I'm not going with my lightest lights yet either. I'm keeping the greens tonally darker so that I've got plenty of room to add lighter layers later on in the painting. One thing to consider with trees is they're some of the darkest values in the landscape, especially pine trees. So that's something to think about. Now back to the water, and one of the things that we can do to create the illusion of clear water is to paint the submerged rocks underneath. So what I did was I mixed up similar colours to what I used in the rocks that are above the water, but edged the mixture more on the blue side and then painted some shadows in those rocks, making sure that the shadows are lighter in value compared with the shadows of the rocks that are above the water. So painting realistic submerged rocks and communicating the clear transparent water all starts in the blocking in stage. Now at this point in the painting, the block-in stage was complete and I let it dry. Now whilst the painting was drying, I started to notice there's a couple of things that I wasn't happy with in the composition. So once dry, I made those changes and just outlined the changes I wanted to make with burnt sienna. So I decided to raise the hill in the midground, just make it a bit higher, and then rework those mountains in the distance. I wasn't happy with the way the light was glowing in the left side of that mountain, so decided to change that a bit. Also just add some more layers to that mountain. Generally the value of the mountain was fine, but the mountain on the left definitely needed to be darker. Now just as I paint this, a note on some of the paintbrushes I've been using. Generally when I block in a painting, I try and use the biggest brushes that I can get away with, and mostly use brittle flat brushes. These brushes are made by Rosemary & Co, and if you want to get some, I've put a link in the description box below. But then once I have finished the blocking in stage and I'm working in more detail into the painting, then I usually switch up my brushes a bit and will start using smaller brushes and also synthetic brushes as well, which give a more defined edge. So what I was doing here was I was just working on the background, making sure that that was working well in the painting, and then painting in the hills as I've made them higher. Now for the greens here, I've used a combination of yellow ochre with ultramarine blue and some cadmium yellow medium and titanium white, and this serves as the base of my greens. Then I've mixed in colours such as phthalo green just to shift the hue of the colour and give it some more emerald tones. And I've also mixed in some alizarin crimson. Now the red in the alizarin crimson is opposite to green on the colour wheel, so it helps to balance out that green and desaturate it a bit so it's not jumping too far forward in the painting. It's really important to keep our greens in check. Now if you remember earlier, I said trees are some of the darkest values in the landscape, whereas grass tends to be a much lighter value colour. So it's kind of like a light to mid-tone. So the ground planes, as John Carlson said in his book Carlson's Guide to Landscape Painting, are some of the more lighter values in the landscape. So the grass has got to be lighter than the trees. So the trees stand out, and also that the grass and the fields are clearly defined. Now, as I'd already painted the areas in light on the trees, the next thing I did was to restate some of those dark values and start building up the form of those tree canopies there. And I was still using a mix of mostly yellow ochre with ultramarine blue, a little titanium white, but then I could also mix in some other colours in there too, such as a little phthalo green, also some alizarin crimson as well, and just help to define the tree canopies there and just make them look more rounded and three-dimensional. And then what I was doing here was I was just working my way forward, so working on the grass at the side of the riverbank there, and also the grass in the foreground. Now when I paint grass, I'm not someone that likes to paint every single blade of grass. I prefer to imply it, and I use a bristle flat brush for this and generally move the paint in the direction that the grass is growing. Now, I hope you're enjoying this video so far, and if you'd like to learn more about painting landscapes, especially if you're really struggling to create depth and distance in your landscapes, and perhaps you're struggling with colour mixing and composition, then what you need is a process, a set process that's going to help you with every painting that you do, so you've got a clear plan to start and finish your landscape paintings. So I'm giving away a free landscape painting blueprint, and this details my whole process, right from selecting reference photos all the way to sketching and to painting as well. And there's a painting demonstration at the end of the blueprint. If you'd like to get my free landscape painting blueprint, just click the link below and I'll send it over to you. Enjoy. Back to the painting, and I was adding more detail to the banks of the river, especially on the left side, and starting to paint in more of those reflections. So the reflections there, I was using similar colours to what I'd used in the trees in the midground and the field that's also in the midground, and dragging the paint downwards. Then following that, I was creating a transition zone between the foreground water, which is where we can see that clear water. I did more work to these submerged stones, and the key thing to remember here is that the shadows in these stones are lighter in value than the shadows of the stones that are above the water. And also the surface of those stones that are in the sunlight beneath the water, they're not going to be as high chroma colours as they would be above the surface of the water. In fact, if anything, they're going to have more of a blue cast to them because of the influence of the water above it. With the shadows in the rocks and stones above the water, I started painting some reflected light in there, generally using combinations of ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, alizarin crimson and titanium white, and even a little yellow ochre to create some heat in some of those rocks. And at this point in the painting, I was starting to think about getting it finished, so there was some faster moving water as it snakes round the corner, and I was using my sky mix to convey the moving water. Now, painting some of these ripples here as I moved further forward into the foreground, this is going to help to communicate more reflective and glassy looking water. So this is a real cool effect that you can do. And generally I save this more towards the end of the painting when I'm adding the last details. One of the things that I do with my paintings in general is to save my lightest value colour until the end. So this is where we're adding the last highlights that's really going to make it pop. So for example, adding some more highlights to the rocks and stones in the foreground, and that's really making them stand out. I also added a few sparkles around some of the base of the rocks that are poking out of the water. So I hope you enjoyed this landscape paintings, and remember, it's all about the tonal values. That's really what's going to create the depth and distance in your paintings. If you want to learn more about painting landscapes, then check out this video here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.